Yeah,
love that story. That's amazing.
yeah, yeah. Met each other in a cemetery, go to New Zealand, and then rest is history.
Yeah, you see some dead bodies, you appreciate life, and you're
Yeah,
like, I
exactly.
gotta capitalize. Hi, Connor. Welcome to a conversation with friends. Thank you for agreeing to do this. Do you mind just like introducing yourself to the audience?
Sure. Yeah, I am Connor, uh, 28 years old, living in Calgary. Um, Went to the University of Calgary. That's how you and I know each other.
Yeah.
Um, I actually know my wife the same way, which is pretty funny because we both knew of you separately and then discovered that, oh, hey, we have a mutual friend in Dower. Um, and yeah, I work at a cemetery, which is always kind of a interesting topic. Really enjoying it. I really enjoy it there. Do some digging and services and whatnot. Yeah, live in our house with our dog and our cat, and my wife, and yeah, just that's pretty much me.
That sounds super homely. I love it. Actually, I know it's homely. I've been there, and I love it. Okay, do you mind me asking, first and foremost, so you went to Calgary, you went to U of C, or sorry, you went to the University of Calgary, and I know you have your degree in, it was in accounting, right? If I'm not
Counting,
mistaken.
yeah,
And you're working at a cemetery right now.
absolutely.
What was the path that led you to working in a cemetery versus taking a degree in accounting? Given like they're
Um,
different.
Very different, yeah. Basically, I was seasonally working there, more in a groundskeeping capacity, a lot of mowing and weed whipping and lawn care. Just doing that through the summers while I was finishing up my degree. And then I would say in my third year in accounting, I realized that it was very unlikely that I was going to pursue this as a career. Um, I definitely didn't outright deny the possibility at the time, but I could tell that it probably wasn't going to be something I wanted to do long term.
Mm,
Um, and then when I graduated, an opportunity for a full time position opened up at the cemetery, which would transition me more into the operating side and allow me to keep doing it for quite a while and be able to support myself.
right.
And it just was kind of a natural transition, honestly. It just went from, oh, I'm seasonal, you know me, I've been here for a couple years, and now I'm gonna just be here all the time. And that's
That's
just kind of how it worked, and I've just kept doing it. I work with really good people,
hmm
a nice small crew. There's four of us full timers, so we all, know each other quite well, and there's really been not a big drive for me to want to go elsewhere. So I've just really enjoyed it these last, man, I guess it's been 5 years now, almost.
holy smokes, that's amazing. So how did you figure out you didn't want a career, or like you didn't want to pursue accounting? Was it something in particular about accounting that pushed you away from it?
Um, I don't mind the analytics of accounting, finding your balances, the mathematics of it. I enjoy that aspect of accounting.
hmm
I think what I disliked and could foresee that I wasn't going to enjoy as a career is just kind of more of the business side, being an accountant. Um, I realized that I didn't necessarily want to work in a corporate environment. It wasn't really where I was comfortable. I found, and I'm generalizing here, but I found that with the type of people that are attracted towards a very corporate job, I did not connect with. Um, I found some of the people just through school, some instructors, fellow students, people that you meet that are in the career. I always got a slight sense of uh, disingenuousness from people,
Right.
which I kind of think you find more of in a corporate atmosphere where everyone's trying to, you know, push their own agenda ahead, keep themselves, on top. It's a
Hmm.
very dog eat dog world,
Yeah, cutthroat this shit,
which
eh?
I realized I just didn't really think that was gonna make me happy.
Hmm.
It wasn't something I gelled with, and kind of conflicted with some of my world views and what I think is probably a better, just a better outlook on life that I think
Right.
I wouldn't find in a lot of the people I would end up working with. Again, I'm generalizing, and I know that that's not the case for everyone. And I know
Of
people
course.
have good intentions, and there's good businesses out there that want to do good. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just I just realized that I didn't want to put on a suit and go downtown and yeah, make that my career. So
Uh,
I
uh,
enjoyed working with my hands. I enjoyed working in equipment. I enjoy offering a service for people that are um, in a hard point in their life, and anything I can do to ease their time at a cemetery, I get some positive feelings from, and I enjoy doing. So yeah, just kind of it's kind of why, if that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. In fact, I think that's kind of beautiful. So you value genuinity in helping people, and you felt like accounting wasn't really the best way to pursue that path, right? So that makes sense. Was it difficult though? Because like you're spending so much money getting that degree, and then figuring out it's not for you. Was that like a hard pill to swallow, or did it feel like a sense of relief and like, oh my God, this feels better acknowledging this?
I think it was a little hard to come to terms with because of the financial aspect.
Hmm.
Um, it's definitely expensive to go to school, especially myself. I grew up in Okotoks, small town outside Calgary, and I rented during that time in university, so my cost was even larger. And even though I was working part time throughout and then full time in the summers, I mean, to be able to afford the schooling and the rent and the groceries and the gas, you don't have a lot of money. So obviously, I was taking out student loans, and there was going to be a big financial cost that was going to follow me for years and years and years outside of graduating. But at the end of the day, I think the university experience itself was worthwhile.
Hmm.
I definitely grew a lot. I met good people. I broadened my own understanding of the world. Um, so I think the experience was worth my time.
Right.
Whether it was worth the dollar value is another question, but it was certainly worth the time invested. Um, it did leave a bad taste in my mouth though, with the financial aspect of it. Uh, and so, if I were to go back and do it again, I might choose a path that maybe a 2-year program, cut
Right.
my costs down that way.
Hmm.
But having done it, I didn't have too much remorse.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, had I not gone to school, I wouldn't have got a seasonal job. I wouldn't have been where I am now. And I wouldn't have met my wife because I met my wife at work at the cemetery. That's how we met each other.
Yeah.
And so, realistically, had I not gone to school, my life would be very, very different. No, I don't regret any of it. So, yeah, I feel pretty good with where I am, and I'm comfortable with where I am. And I'm also not too concerned that I'm not doing what I did my degree, degree was for, because I feel like a lot of people are in that same position as well,
Hmm.
especially right now. Some weird times for a lot of folk, and I think you just got to be thankful that you even have a job currently
Right.
right now.
Hmm. No, certainly. Certainly. Honestly, you're making this conversation very easy because you've answered the questions I had when you were talking. Yeah,
Oh,
I can
good.
tell you're a deep thinker. I love it. It's very easy. Okay. I guess my next question to you would so working at a cemetery, right? Like you said, it's a very unique place to work at. Um, Besides the fact that like a lot of people are like, you said there's a sense of family there because the people you're working with, you're so close to them, and the way that you work, that's your schedule. But is there any other unique experiences you find from working in a cemetery that like resonates with you? Besides, you also said that you like helping people, right? And it feels that way to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, working outdoors is a big plus.
Hmm.
It's definitely something I would like to continue at least into my hopefully mid 30s. I mean, I quite enjoy it being out in the fresh air, even when it's cold. I
Mm.
actually prefer the cold over the heat more often than not. The heat can be pretty exhausting. Um, but there's something peaceful about working in a cemetery. It's covered in trees and made to look nice. It's more or less a park. So being able to spend my 8 to 10 hours a day basically in a park is pretty enjoyable.
Yeah.
Um, and just being able to yeah, work with my hands and enjoy that aspect. I also get to meet a lot of new people every year. When we bring in seasonal staff, that can be pretty entertaining. Bringing in a bunch of people that you don't know that are
Yeah.
only going to be there for a few months and are
Hmm.
from all sorts of different backgrounds. So spending those few months getting to know those folk is pretty entertaining and also provides good skills in terms of delegating tasks to people and working on strengthening supervisory roles and building tools that I'll utilize for a long time to come and in different roles in the future.
Nice. Okay. And so you said that like you hope to work outdoors till you're like mid-30s. Does that mean this is like the path that you've decided you're going to be pushing forward with? Like is this where you're planning on working the whole time?
I will probably be here for several more years, I would think, probably beyond that if things work out.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely a option to make this a full career where I stick with it for quite a while because there are positions above mine and more of a lead managerial role that eventually could be something that I transition into, and I'm certainly working towards.
Uh,
Um, but yeah, as I wait for a role like that to open up,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have no problem continuing doing what I'm doing for many years, and I am not actively seeking anything else for the time being,
Right.
unless
Mm-hmm.
something significant changes with my work life, and the without any big changes, I don't foresee changing my career goals at the moment.
Connor, I don't know if you realize this, but like, okay, I'm like super impressed by you right now because I think the thing that I ask a lot of people, and actually I heard this today. So, two of my friends were talking to each other, and one of them was like, "Oh, what do you want to do with the rest of your career?" And three people in a room, two of them are like, "Oh, I need to figure out what I need to do next, what I want to do next," and so on and so forth. And the last person's like, "I have my dream job." And when I'm talking to you, I'm hearing, "I have my dream job. I figured out what I wanted to do, or at least the qualities I wanted." And it's resonating with me in the job already. I feel like that's like an insane source of happiness for someone, right? Like that's amazing. People,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I do enjoy sticking with it, and barring that none of that changes, I am very fortunate that I'm satisfied with what I'm doing and I'm enjoying the people I work with, and my days don't feel like big long drags, and I don't bring a lot of work home with me, and yeah, it's just all things that you know I enjoy. I worried to I don't want to get stagnant with what I'm doing. I don't want to
hmm
just be, oh, I'm comfortable, so I'm not going to change anything.
right.
So I do slight. I'm always looking to add some sort of, I guess, build skills for the future in case I do need to go elsewhere with, small educational
hmm
courses and um, trying out, assisting my manager with some of his tasks in order to learn some of those skills. Building uh, things that are going to help me if I choose something else down the road.
Right.
So I'm leaving that. It's not like I'm leaving that option closed,
hmm
and I'm just
Yeah,
sticking with what I have because it's comfortable, but yeah, I am definitely fortunate that I'm satisfied with what I'm doing.
nice. And those
Yeah.
learning opportunities, do you typically find them or try to look for them within your work, or do you also look for them outside of your work and try to develop yourself in other ways to promote, like, just as a self-development tool, I guess?
Yeah, a little bit of both.
Hmm.
Some of the courses I'm doing are directly funded through work, although they're not always directly related to my current task. They're
Mm.
more often than not just more of a managerial lead stuff, skills to learn in that regard. So
Right, so
things that I can
transferable
use in the
skills.
future.
Yeah, okay.
But then yeah, I would like to do more of it now, and I'm finding, now that I'm 5, 6 years out of university,
Hmm.
um, there is a part of me that wants to do more learning
Hmm.
outside of work, just general learning, literally about anything and everything,
Right.
just to engage my brain. Um, and sometimes that can be as simple as, okay, I'm going to read a good book that I'm going to learn real things about the
Hmm.
world,
Yeah.
and study that for a bit, or uh, there's quite a lot of online free courses that can be taken, and definitely something that I'm finding I'm more interested in now that I have been out of school for so long, and just anything to really jumpstart my mind a little more.
That's awesome. Dude, okay, this is gonna be kind of like a meta question. But I'm genuinely curious about this because from the sounds of it, like, you're a very introspective person, right? And I guess in a way, if someone else wanted to be more introspective or had that desire, what are some tips and tricks you would give them in regards to like how did you find yourself? Like, was it just through experiences or was there more to it?
Interesting question.
Sorry, it's super
Um,
meta. It's just I'm genuinely curious because you sound like you're probably one of the most calm people I've ever talked to ever, and I find that that's from that.
well,
So,
I would say I'm definitely low energy,
hmm.
and I've been that way pretty much as long as I can remember.
Hmm.
So then maybe that's where that mellow is coming from. Just
I took it for as comfortability in yourself,
yeah.
but
But yeah, in terms of like, I would definitely, I saw myself as an introspective person at a very young age.
hmm.
It's just always been a part of the way that my brain thinks.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not a very social person. I don't have a lot of problem talking in groups or to people. I would just much rather not do it. I would just much rather be to myself or be with a small group of people that I know really well.
Hmm.
Um, so maybe that too kind of has uh, made me more introspective, is just a preference towards being alone with
Hmm.
my thoughts.
I,
You know, I'm definitely to go out and be in a social setting with a group of people is like an exhausting task.
right.
Whereas, yeah, when I'm on my own or with people I'm very, very comfortable with, and that's where I kind of get my energy back.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't know. I feel like there's something more to that though, because I feel like there's a lot of people that are like in a way introverted. I guess would be a word to describe that. But even then, they're not able to like their focus still doesn't go on themselves, right? They're just more unwinding. So to me, it
sure.
feels like you do more. I don't know.
I
That's
guess
just the
I've
feel.
always had a perspective that you should always be looking at what you do,
Hmm.
the habits that you have,
Right.
the way that you speak to people. Basically, I'm always kind of aware of how I am or how I might be perceived.
Mm.
And then always try to find ways that I can adjust. If there's something I don't particularly enjoy or find that is doing me good,
Hmm.
I will try to actively and consciously change that.
Okay.
Um, and this is, can be, a long process, trying to change certain habits or ways that you behave can be very difficult. Um, we're creatures of habit. Breaking
Yeah.
breaking habits can be very difficult. So
Mhm.
I guess I've just, for a long period of time, just always been trying to make very subtle directions towards something better, and just trying to constantly uh, be kind of critical of myself.
Mhm.
So I think that kind of in itself is introspection.
Okay.
You're seeing how you behave, and you're figuring out what you do or don't like, and then trying to change it. And that's just been something that I've done for a very long time. So it's just become part of the way my brain thinks, I guess.
Yeah, no, that honestly, you make it sound so easy, but I feel like that's extremely difficult for people, right? Because it's so easy to get like from, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it sounds like you internalize it and then you evaluate based on your own moral compass or your own value set. Um,
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of putting it. Yeah.
yeah, and you're not doing it based on just like, because I'm interacting with this person, how they're reacting is what mattering. It's more of how you've presented yourself and you're focusing on that aspect of it. Right? And I think that's extremely difficult. Like, I'm so impressed right now, dude.
Well, I think I don't know how difficult it is for, yeah, for myself. I mean, I suppose for other people, maybe, I don't know how, really, how other people think or feel, but
Yeah, yeah, of course.
um, yeah, I would say sometimes it can be difficult. Like, you can definitely be too critical of yourself, and then you can kind of get trapped in, like, almost like a depressive cycle of, like, constantly beating yourself up that
Yeah,
I've definitely experienced, but
yeah.
feel like lately I've gotten over. But um,
Hmm.
that
Yeah,
can be difficult.
exactly. You can either be like too self-critical or too lenient and blame like the external sources outside of you for things that are happening, right? And in
Yeah,
either cases, you're not improving in the ways that you want to see fit. Right? And
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
that's so impressive. Dude, okay, so I gotta ask, you met your wife in UFC. Right? And I know I know your wife as well. Like you said, like met separately and stuff. But like, do you mind sharing a little bit about like your journey to finding her and how that evolved, like your relationship evolved? Sorry,
Sure.
sorry, that's so
We
broad.
had a very, very interesting start of a relationship.
Hmm.
So yeah, we both went to UFC, but I didn't know of her back then. We met. She had just graduated. Actually, yeah, both of us had just graduated. No, that doesn't make sense. I think she had just graduated. I must have had 1 year left, if I'm remembering correctly, back in 2016.
You're
Um,
reminding me we're getting old, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so I was already working. I had already done one summer at the cemetery, and the second summer was just starting.
Hmm.
And she was one of the new seasonal staff that we were bringing on, and that's how we met. It sounds corny, but for me, it was a love at first sight situation.
Damn, dude.
I tell her that, the first time I laid eyes on you, I knew, like, there was something special there, but I don't know if she believes me, but it's true. Um, so yeah, we met there. At the time I was dating somebody, but that was already, you know, probably on its way out.
Right.
And then the feelings that I felt for this, for Ashley, made it
Hmm.
very apparent that that relationship was not going to continue. Um, so it was kind of an awkward situation where I had just got out of a relationship
Hmm.
that summer, and I didn't want to rush into anything. So, but I was very interested in being Ashley's friend, very interested.
Right. Uh-huh.
And that's how our relationship got started, is we just started hanging out. We rock climbed a bunch. We went on a couple hikes, just hanging out outside work, and then quite a few months later, I think at this point we had known each other for 5 or 6 months. and we're pretty consistently seeing one another. And then she had plans to go on a nice long 3-month trip. She was going to go to Australia and New Zealand.
Hmm.
And I was just, yeah, I would have been graduated then. What am I talking about? So we were both graduated because I was planning on also taking a trip. Just graduated. What do? You go travel. Or at least a
Right.
lot of people do. It seems to be the case. Well, not recently,
Yeah,
um,
not yeah.
but back then. So yeah, I was already looking for a place to travel, and New Zealand really piqued my interest. Um, so I decided that I also was going to go to New Zealand, and we had planned to meet up. And so I was there for a bit by myself, and then we met up in New Zealand, and that in New Zealand is where we started our relationship officially. You know,
Dude, that's
16 hour flight away on the other side of the world. We decided, all right, let's make a go at this.
wow.
And 2 weeks into our relationship, we rented a van and we lived in a van for 3 weeks, traveling New Zealand, close contact, can't escape one another. And our relationship basically went through 6 months of getting to know each other in the span of 3 weeks inside that van. So
Wow.
basically, at that point, it was either this is going to work or it's not going to work
Dude,
because we've spent an incredible amount of time with each other in a very short period, and it was going to work. And then, 4 years after that, 4 or 5 years after that, we're getting married. So,
holy shit,
or we
dude. I
got married. Yeah.
love that story. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Met each other in a cemetery, go to New Zealand, and then rest is history.
Yeah, you see some dead bodies, you appreciate life, and you're
Yeah,
like, I
exactly.
gotta capitalize.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so okay, first, if you don't mind me asking, so that love at first sight, what was that feeling like for you? Because it's clear that you're being very honest about that, right? Like it was definitely there, but um, like, could you describe that emotion, or like, how did you know? Was it just like upon talking to her, or was it just like when you saw her, it was suddenly like, oh my God.
Yeah, I didn't even talk to her at the time. It was just, it was the way when I looked at her, I just, the way I felt all fuzzy inside. I don't know.
Like,
All these years later, I don't quite recall, but it was just the way our eyes connected.
hmm.
The way my mind worked at that point was just like, wow, there's something special here. Like I could just, it's like a follow your gut feeling
Yeah, the
almost.
instincts kicked off.
Exactly, like, it was just yeah, it followed the feeling. It was such a good feeling just making eye contact, and then the way that, once we eventually did start hanging out and chatting, just everything from the get-go was so natural. Just
Wow.
yeah, it was incredible.
Can I be honest? When I hear that, like I still go back to you're so introspective, right? And like your instincts knew what you wanted. It's like
Yeah, I
that's
mean, a lot of big decisions I make are based mostly. I usually, it's a cliche, but follow your gut. I mean, that's the way I've lived my life. If something doesn't feel right, I find a way into something different. I just follow the gut. That's almost all the decisions I make. Big decisions. It's
I,
you know, it's a it,
mhm,
see how you feel. Envision yourself in something that you're unfamiliar with. What is your body telling you?
mhm.
Obviously, some things are scary and they might feel daunting, but even 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 when you're looking at something scary or a potential that's scary, I still find that your gut is telling you, hey, this might be freaky, this might freak you out, but it feels right. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
No, no, no. I think I legitimately think I get it. And again, I think the bigger issue is for the average person, um, especially following your gut, because it doesn't seem like there's any other reasoning behind it besides an instinct. And that's when it gets confusing for people because they can't explain it, right? But in actuality, I think that like when you're following an instinct or a gut feeling, it's based on your experiences and an embodiment of them, and then your brain is like already making the connections that you haven't fully realized, I guess.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. I like how
Yeah.
you describe that.
But to see that in love, I'm like, that's amazing, bro. How much confidence do you have that, and how much trust do you have in yourself to be able to capitalize on that? That's amazing. Holy crap. I hope to one day get to that level. Wow. And then in regards to it, so going from like this New Zealand adventure, which sounds fantastic, by the way. Also, I gotta ask, why did New Zealand pique your interest? Was it because Ashley was going there, or was it just separate of that? Like you both were interested in it?
I'm not gonna lie, one big reason that it was very interesting to me is because it's a predominantly English speaking country. And I had never traveled, my travels extended between Canada and some parts of the US and, a vacation destination in Mexico. Like I had very little traveling the world experience. So
Mhm,
going somewhere that would be easy to get around and to be a stranger in and be confident that everyone I talked to would speak the same language, that was important
mhm,
for it being the big first trip. And then it was just the nature aspect of New Zealand really interested me. The fact that you can go from the North Island, which is this lush, green, floral landscape, and then drive down to the south, and you're in cold, dry, mountainous terrain. Like it was basically very similar to Canada, but condensed in a way that you could see it all in a very short period of time,
mhm.
from the mountain ranges to the oceans to the tropics. That. So it was a lot of natural beauty that drew me to New Zealand.
Right. Wow. You're making me want to go to New Zealand.
It's a great time, especially in a van traveling wherever you want to go. That was incredible.
That's actually on my bucket list, not New Zealand in particular, but just traveling in a van somewhere. So
Oh yeah, the amount of control that you have is unbeat. You know, because the first 3 weeks I relied pretty much entirely on buses. And when
Oh,
there's only one bus moving to or from a town and going to a different town
yeah.
per day or even every other day, you really have to plan out your trip based on the bus schedule.
Right.
But when you're in a bus, when you're in your own van, uh, you can go wherever, whenever you want. It's pretty
Hmm.
awesome.
Was it a tricky adjustment? Because like I can't imagine really like living in a van. Like is it's
It's
yeah,
crammed.
it's crammed.
But it's fun. I don't know. I wouldn't want to do it for a very long stretch of time because of how just compact you have to live.
Hmm.
Um, but it is definitely fun, especially going from all the different campsites and just being able to, you know, your bed's laid out and you can just slide open the door and be laying in the bed looking out to the ocean. And there's a lot of cool aspects of having that van to run around with. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think if you do end up doing that, you're gonna have a great time.
Okay, and this is a personal question for me, but like a washroom situation, like did you just go in the outdoors, or did you like find restaurants and stuff, or like what's?
Yeah, you definitely, yeah, like campsites were a big one.
Mhm.
Uh, Frequently would get day passes to gyms so that we could shower.
I didn't
So
even
that
think
was
of that.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of public restrooms. It's a lot of gyms. Uh, that part can be difficult, but you know what? If you're going, for a few weeks or a month or whatnot, it's stuff you can make work for the short term.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
What
awesome.
areas interest you to vacation to in a van?
Honestly, I was thinking of doing a trip down. A friend of mine, she was talking about it recently. I think she went down to the States. My intention is to potentially interview her in the near future.
Oh yeah.
But that sounded really intriguing to me, and I also want to go down to like Halifax and stuff, like across
Oh yeah.
Canada. So, another friend of mine did that recently as well. He had a bit of a like he was helping someone move, and they had a bit of an accident on the way. It was in the middle of winter,
Oh
Um,
no,
but the overall idea seemed really cool. Don't worry, they're fine now. It
that's
was
good.
just scary in the moment.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, no. So across Canada and stuff, I don't even know. I guess traveling to a different country to do a WAN trip would be kind of cool. I just have never really thought about it. So like, talking to you about this, like I heard about it from you before, but like talking to you about it now at this point in my life, it seems way more appealing. I think I was too lost in corporate life before.
Well, going around the US would be pretty cool. I mean, there's so much to see down there
Yeah.
in terms of the landscapes. They're ever changing.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, out in the East Coast, I've never been there myself. Furthest I've gotten is Ontario, but I would love to go out to the East Coast someday as well. It looks beautiful out there.
Dude, if you want to do a bro trip, I'm so down. I've
Yeah,
never gotten to
sounds good.
travel with you, so that would be awesome. I'm just saying. And if you want to do it in a WAN, I can create get a divider there, and we're good
Yeah, that is a lot of landscape
to
to drive
explore.
to, I will say.
Yeah, two people, we got this, right?
Oh yeah.
There you
That was
go.
one nice thing of New Zealand is, with the van, when you're going site to site and you're traveling through the country, our travel time was maybe 3 hours tops to get from site to site, just
Hmm.
because the country is so small. So a couple 3 hour trips and you've gone around a large chunk of the country, and so that was nice.
That's
Canada's
amazing.
so big.
Yeah, actually, in Pakistan, from my understanding, it's the same thing. You could probably do the whole country in one day, just like
Oh
if you
yeah,
drive through it all. I think I went like 5 years ago, and we went from Islamabad to Lahore, which is like the capital to where my grandparents are from.
okay.
And yeah, I fell asleep and I woke up, and it's like 6 hours later, we're already there. From
Nice.
it's like, oh wow,
It's the
well that
best
was
way to
fun.
travel. Just fall asleep and you're there.
Yeah, missed out on a lot of the landscape though, but
True.
nevertheless, I definitely want to try something like that. Okay, so do you mind me asking as well? Because so going from like these extremely strong feelings to like discovering more about Ashley and like creating that relationship, do you feel there was like a lot of hurdles there, or was it a pretty straightforward transition? Because New Zealand sounds like it sounds amazing, but you're spending so much time together, and frankly, I consider, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, I consider when you're traveling with someone to be a little more of like a fantasy than anything, right? Because you're
Sure. Oh
also,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
You're basically in vacation mode, and on top of that, you're on honeymoon mode because we had
y-
just started dating. So for
yeah.
sure,
So coming back, was there a bit of an adjustment? Like, did you learn a lot more on the trip or about her, or like when you guys came back and then started figuring things out through that?
I would say I learned a lot about her in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And then I definitely continued to learn things about her for quite a while once we got back, just
Mm-hmm.
at a slower interval, just because we've gone from spending every waking hour together to, she lived in Airdrie, I lived in Okotoks, so our commute was an hour,
Yeah.
which is, it's not terrible, but
Mm-hmm.
it did mean that we saw each other much less frequently than we were.
That would be a deal
So that
breaker
kind
for
of
a lot of people. I hope you know.
Well,
So,
there were some bad drives, like, yeah, that commute kind of sucks, but it really isn't that bad.
mhm.
It's not like they're crazy far. It wasn't
Right.
worth, certainly wasn't worth ending anything over.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. Uh,
but yeah, I learned things about her slowly after the fact, but everything I learned about her afterwards were all great things that just made
mhm.
me love her even more. Little surprises, that we learn as we were continuing to be together. Uh, yeah, she's been nothing but amazing. I'm just fortunate she stuck she stuck with it after being 3 weeks in a van with me because that's intolerable.
Come on, dude, you're awesome.
uh,
None,
yeah.
no,
Yeah, she's stuck in a van with the lactose intolerant guy that you know is just yeah it could yeah
yeah.
yes
You,
and being on the road can be stressful and
mm,
yeah and I can be tempered now and then
Yeah.
definitely something I am constantly working on. Maybe, um, but yeah, I can be a jerk, and she put up with all that crap that she shouldn't have because I could be a jerk, and it's just she's been amazing and loved me anyway. So
Yeah, well, you two are two of the most loving people I know, so like that's that's amazing. I'm glad you two found each other that way. But honestly, it sounds like going on that trip was like a good test of your relationship then, and then everything after that, it sounds like it was easier, right? Only because it was like a trip in a van. So like you're
yeah,
saying, it's like
absolutely. I mean,
every living room. Yeah.
it was nice knowing that there was really nothing about me that she hadn't uh, seen.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was. I mean, that's not entirely true, I guess, but
Mm-hmm.
there were a lot of aspects of myself that she got to see with that trip, and it was like, hey, you know, if you don't like this, that's fine, and
Mm.
we don't have to continue dating. But it never ever came to that. She, yeah, she was great.
So, I'm not sure about Ashley, but I know like you're super close with your family, right? I'm saying super close, but I mean like healthily close, whatever that looks like for
Yeah.
people. In regards to that, was there a bit of a hurdle? Because like you did that trip and then you came back, and I'm assuming based on everything you're saying, like that solidified the fact that hey, this is the girl for me, and I'm hoping that Ashley felt the same way. This is the guy for me, and that's why you guys are willing on doing like hour-long trips to like meet each other and continue getting to know each other. But was there any struggles with like, introducing her to the family and all that other stuff, or was that a pretty smooth transition as well?
No, that was a smooth transition. Her family is very welcoming
Hmm.
and made me feel home immediately, which was very good. And then, yeah, my parents and sister, I mean, my sister loved her. Um, they immediately bonded. And my mom is the friendliest woman around, and, she'll get along with anybody.
I really want to meet your mom now.
And then I think my dad was just a weirdo, but he's a weirdo in general. So he, I don't really remember. I think I knew he, liked her, but
Hmm.
he's just like a poor communicator. Uh, so I don't know how much they really talked or even
Hmm.
talk at
Right.
all. He just doesn't. I don't know. He's a strange guy.
Okay, and for like maintaining a healthy and happy relationship, right? Like with your spouse. Well, yeah, I can say that now. Yeah, certainly. Yeah, with your spouse.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, do you feel like a lot of those influences? Sorry, this is a question I've asked other people on the podcast as well. But like, do you feel like those influences? Do you view that from success between your families, or is there other stuff that you guys read about and figured that out, or was it just from talking to each other and you're like, this is what I want to see and stuff. Like, how are you guys finding the what's the word for this? How are you guys able to create the dynamic of your relationship? Like, what would you say to people about something like that?
Well, definitely communication is key.
Hmm.
Um, Making sure that there's no conversation that is off limits, I would say.
Mm.
And just being able to let each other know how you feel and always keeping a good open dialogue. Um, a lot of it is just working together to make positive change for each other
Okay.
and having each other's back.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, we've just always been good communicators with one another. I
D-
think it
that
makes the
was actually
biggest
gonna be
difference.
that was gonna be the follow-up of this is so, like, at what point were you guys able to communicate like that? Like, because usually people are more guarded. Well, I'm saying usually that's not always the case, but like, sometimes it happens to be that people are quite guarded, when they meet new people and things like that. Did you feel that it was a pretty natural transition for you? Like, were you both comfortable being yourselves, or was there a lot of like boundaries and guards and all that other stuff to get through to be able to communicate openly and honestly the way that you guys
Uh,
are able to?
yeah, almost immediately we were very open with each other, which
Wow.
is
Sounds.
awesome. Like even when we were still just friends hanging out,
Mm-hmm.
we were very open with one another. Uh, and then that just progressed even further when we were, dating. And um, I'd say I'm pretty closed off with strangers. Like if there's somebody I meet and there's a high likelihood it's just a fleeting, relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I just met them. I'm only going to meet them one time. I'm pretty I'm pretty shut. I'm closed off, and you probably won't get to know me at all,
Mm-hmm.
just because it's not worth my effort.
Yes,
And
there.
maybe that's a fault of my own, but it's just what I'm comfortable with. I don't like opening up to people
Mhm.
that I won't get to know.
Right.
Um, but when it's people that I foresee and want to build a relationship with, I
Mhm.
do open up, and I'm very comfortable with people, and I'm very honest, and I let people know anything and everything. I'm pretty open.
Yeah.
And I feel like she treated me the same way. She was very open with herself, and again, it was so natural. It's hard to
No, no, for sure.
give you a uh, reasoning why it was like that. It just was. It's hard to
Yeah.
explain, really.
No, no, I think you're describing what I think the quote goes, what is it? Like the best relationships are just so uncomplicated, right? So simple.
Yeah,
And
that's how it felt. Yeah, absolutely.
that's what it seems to be that you're describing, right? That's amazing, dude. Okay. And have you found the transition to marriage? Has that changed anything at all, or did it just feel like, okay, certificate signed, wedding planned, all good to go?
Yeah, definitely didn't change much,
Mm,
which I think a lot of couples that have been together for quite a while would probably say the same.
mm-hmm.
Uh, because at the end of the day, if you've been together for quite a few years,
Right.
the marriage is just a title,
Mm-hmm.
really. It's a formality. Uh, that being said, getting married was a very fun experience. It was weird doing it in COVID. You know, lucky that we were even able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Juggling between all the restrictions that happened, but we went into that knowing that that was going to be the case. We only invited 30 people. There were a lot of family that we weren't even inviting, which was kind of disappointing. I would have loved to have had more people, but we knew like if we bring more than 30, we're going to get into complications where, if there's a restriction, then we got to cut people out. Um, and we knew we wanted to get married sooner than later because everybody was pushing their weddings ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the competition for wedding dates was going to be intense. And we had a lot of weddings to go to this year.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, you know what? No, we want it. We want it now in 2021. We'll make it small, and it'll still be a great time, and it was. But yeah, that would be the only. I would have loved to have had more family and friends, but yeah, the transition to marriage was yeah, it was very little changed,
Mm.
but it was a great experience. And
So, that desire to get married right away, did that come from the fact that you guys just wanted to get that part done, or was it just because you wanted, like, the title had some level of significance into it, and that, like, you guys wanted to get married and made sure that that part of it was complete, like an honorific, right? Hello?
in 2019,
Oh,
um,
sorry, Connor. I think you cut out there for a little bit.
oh, okay, but yeah, basically had more to do with COVID.
Oh, okay.
We had already been engaged for a fair amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
and if we waited longer, it just didn't feel right to be engaged for so long.
Okay,
So there was a
gotcha.
drive to want to do it because, hey, were already engaged type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, there was a drive to do it because the 2022 is going to be just so busy with everyone else's weddings that we know.
Hmm.
So really, it was more of a logistical thing than anything. It was like, hey, this is going to work out well now,
Yeah.
with the downside being that the people there will be low,
Hmm.
but everything else works out. So it was more logistics, honestly. It really wasn't of like, oh, we need to be married. We were both pretty. We dabbled with the idea of just, hey, we'll be long engaged and whatever. But
Yeah.
part of us at the same time kind of also wanted to get it out of the way,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of planning and it's a lot of stress.
Oh
So there
gosh.
was also the desire to, hey, let's get this done, and we don't have
Yeah.
to worry about it in the future.
How long did it take to plan all of that then? Like, like it's
I think it took 6 months.
Jesus.
Um, yeah, because I think once we decided we were going to do it in 2021,
Hmm.
that was about February, and then we had an August wedding. Uh, so 6 or 7 months of planning, but a lot of that, I would say, everything was planned probably within 3 months.
Oh wow.
Most of it was just a waiting game. Like we kind of had everything ready to go
Hmm.
in three to 4 months, and then yeah, then it just became a matter of the little things that needed to be done
Right.
after that.
Hmm. And what's your future plans with Ashley? Like, are you planning like do you guys have the desire to have kids and things like that, or are you guys settled with just like where you are right now and that's where you want to see in the long term? Or
Yeah, well, right now, pretty comfortable.
okay.
We're
Hmm.
not rushing out to have kids. We do want kids.
Sorry, I probably sound like your
Uh,
parents, eh? Just
no, actually, no. We don't get
ah,
bugged too much.
oh.
We don't get bugged too much. Um, Yeah, I think kids are definitely on the table. I think we're probably going to wait another 3 or 4 years.
Hmm.
Uh, and then there's a question of, how are we going to have kids?
Mm.
Even just recently, just the way the world is, this
Hmm.
might get a little depressing, but
No, go for
I
it.
don't even know if I want to bring in kids to the
Mm.
world. And that's something I could definitely change my opinion on. But right now, my opinion is not great on
Hmm.
bringing on kids to the world. I think our world is very troubled right now. Uh, but that does not mean we don't want kids. And and if that is, if that's how both of us are feeling a few years from now, we both are, thinking adoption might be a better role because, and you're taking care of somebody that already exists in this world and giving them a better home rather than bringing in new life, uh, that yeah, you're helping rather than creating bigger burden almost.
Yeah, sorry, I hope you don't mind if I dig a little deeper into this because you're the first person to say that out of everyone that I've talked to. And
Okay.
I genuinely like I've had the same thoughts. I've definitely been there before. I'm not gonna lie, right?
Yeah.
Like the idea of adoption actually sounds pretty good to me as well. But in regards to that, is the fear more to do with like I'm bringing in new children into the world, and thereby the world's already in a bad place, and so I'm technically not adding any more. Like, what's the reasoning behind like the world sucks, and that's why I don't want to bring in kids? It just if you want to dig a little deeper, if you can.
Sure.
And sorry, that was
Yeah, I
badly
think it
paraphrased.
is it is mostly
Hmm.
you're bringing in new life that didn't previously exist, uh and the burden is almost more on you that you brought this new life into the world, and whereas with adoption, like I guess I already said, they already exist and they kind of need help.
Right.
There's a
Hmm.
reason a child is being put up for adoption. There's somebody needs to help this kid, um, and that's something we're very interested in because we do
Hmm.
want kids. But the
Hmm.
world is messed up.
It
You
really
know,
is. Yes.
it's whether it's what's going on right now with Russia, which
Mm-hmm.
is a wait and see situation as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
It is a wait to see if this world we're living in is even going to exist even remotely how it looks a year from now, or are we all going to be at war, or what's going on? And that's not something, I'm ready to speculate on, but it's a
Yeah.
wait and see situation.
Uh-huh.
And then just seeing how divided we've been these
Yeah.
last half decade to a decade, that just seems to get progressively worse, not better, but it
Mm-hmm.
just seems to get worse. Uh, and then just, you know, you could take all the little political dividing issues that tear apart friends and families in
Yeah.
the world now
Mm-hmm.
and ignore all that, and then there'd still be the threat of our climate coming to a burning halt, uh, and destroying all life on Earth as we know it. So,
Sorry, this is
when
not
you
funny,
take
but
all of that, you're kind of like, wow, do I want to have the burden of guilt of bringing new life into the world?
I
That's
see
kind of
exactly. I see what you're
the
saying.
thought process of
Yeah. So
creating.
you're.
Now, that being said,
Mm-hmm.
part of me, like, the genetic idea of
Yeah.
having a child that is yours and your wife's or your partner's, and it having that genetic
Mm-hmm.
aspect to it, I think is incredible and something I do want. But it's gonna be, when it comes down to decision time, it'll be how much do we want that, as opposed to bringing in that burden of new life, and then how much do we want to help or raise some child that is already in the world and just needs
Yeah.
loving parents.
Mm-hmm.
So all those questions will get asked, a few years from now.
I
See
think you.
where we'll see where everybody's at.
Yeah, I think you've thought this through a lot more than I was expecting. And honestly, you answered my second question already, which is gonna be about like genetics versus that. Because in my head and in my eyes, just knowing both of you the way that I do, I have no doubt that kid, wherever that kid comes from, whether it's in a test lab, whether it's adoption, or like some other
Yeah,
thing, he's gonna have he or she will have all the love in the world, or it will have all the I don't know, dude. There's so many
absolutely,
pronouns nowadays.
absolutely.
Right, and I have no doubt about that. So like I think you guys can't make a wrong decision in that regard. But that's
Yeah.
interesting. I like the concept. And okay, I'm gonna get really really goddamn meta with you because part of the reason behind this podcast in the first place was like exactly what you were talking about, right? Like I feel like it's hard to have genuine conversations with people, right? Like open ended, just listening. And so I know you're the kind of person that's like been practicing that kind of stuff more and more in your own life or in regards to the way that you're communicating with people around you. I just wanted to get your idea or your thoughts on like what are some good ways to have productive, healthy conversations? Like, is there certain topics and stuff that you should avoid altogether, or is there better methods to navigate through all that stuff?
Well, I don't know if there are topics that you should avoid altogether. I
Mm-hmm.
think it becomes a comfort level.
Right.
There are some conversations that I probably just don't want to have with certain people because it won't be productive.
Mm-hmm.
I think you should always have a difficult conversation with someone
Mm-hmm.
if it feels productive. But
Ah,
some
okay.
people are not interested in changing their opinion, and it's not productive,
Yeah.
because you're just going to run around in circles and probably get very frustrated, and nobody's going to walk away having learned anything. So I think, just for the first part of that question on,
Mhm.
should you have these conversations? I think it is super circumstantial.
Yeah, read the
It
room kind of thing,
depends.
right?
Yeah, it depends who you're talking to, how well you know them,
Yeah.
how well ingrained their opinions are, and whether or not it's going to be a irredeemable conversation that ends up destroying friendship. That being said, I don't think any difficult conversation
Should be avoided.
about political opinion or opinion on anything should result in two people not being able to continue being friends.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
isn't that
but
like
again, that's
signs of a weak?
circumstantial.
Yeah, and isn't that like just signs of a weak friendship? Like your relationship is not that
Probably,
strong. If okay.
I would think. But yeah, I think when you're having difficult conversations, like there's so many little things in the news that you can choose as a conversation piece. A lot of it comes down to just for myself. If I'm giving advice, I guess
Mm-hmm.
it would be to not get frustrated
Mm-hmm.
first off, and to try to take a stance of understanding.
Right.
Um, I try not to push an opinion of mine on somebody else's if we're disagreeing.
Mm-hmm.
I try to ask questions to get a better understanding on why they might have that opinion. Through that, I might be able to interject counter arguments that directly relate to issues that they feel that they have and that actually connect with them
Mm-hmm.
rather than just getting frustrated and calling each other names or whatnot, just for the
Yeah.
conversation to devolve into name calling and just arguments. And I'm more interested in having a conversation where I might learn something about a topic I'm not familiar with
Right.
or an opinion I don't hold.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope I also can leave an impression on the person I'm speaking with and hope that I can pull them maybe a little closer to finding out a little bit more about themselves and a little bit more about the topic that they may not have considered. To me, that would be a productive conversation, regardless if the two parties would walk away having any different opinion. If there's just um, if we can just find areas that we may agree on and then build off of that, that's
Mm-hmm.
a great starting point. I feel I've had a lot of difficult conversations with friends about differing opinions
Mm-hmm.
where we do find a lot of commonality.
Yeah.
And then that commonality can breed new opinions for both of us because then you're both looking at things from a similar position, and hopefully both parties grow from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, dude, what you're saying sounds very, very powerful. But I think a quick follow-up on that would probably be, but like, okay, so to me, what you said, it covers a lot of like general conversations and stuff. But what about those personal ones, right? Like where, you're getting heated, but it's not because of necessarily the topic, but it's because you care for someone or you love someone, and that's where, you want to see the best for them and you feel like they're making mistakes or something like that. What about those kinds of conversations? Would you say that should be the same thing? Like, at what point do you stop pushing? So let's say, like, I don't know. Uh, this is gonna sound so weird. Because I don't really know like, like, do you give your sister a lot of advice, for example?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then if she like does things against your advice and you feel like that's bad for her, to what point do you stop pushing and accept and support versus actually push and try to like encourage her further towards something, right? Like, what do you think the
Yeah.
fair balance is there?
So for that sort of conversation, I tend to try to make my piece heard because
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important when it is someone like, a loved one like that, um, that if there's something that, then they may be doing, let's say that's damaging to themselves. Let's just
Mm-hmm.
use that as example.
Right.
It is important that, if they're your loved one, that you make that known to them, your concern known to them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, from there, though, if the concern, if I air my concern and I just get, nothing back, like rejection back, basically, they're unwilling to change. Um, there is a certain point where I don't think you're doing any good pushing more,
Mhm.
um, because I think a lot of destructive behavior, it's great for someone to say, "Hey, by the way, you're doing this, and I think it's going to lead somewhere bad in the future. You should probably look at changing that." That's an important conversation to have to somebody. But at the end of the day, that individual needs to want to get out of that position themselves, and they need to do that on their own, I feel. Now,
Mhm.
certainly support could be an important facilitating factor in them
Mhm.
changing for the better,
Yeah.
but that support has to be wanted, or else it's just going to be conflict, I feel, and it might just push them further away.
Yeah. Uh,
Um,
Well, I guess the other aspect of it is like, what if you're again? I'm using your sister, and like this is theoretical, right? But let's say your sister is doing something that actually, what you said about your WAN trip is probably a good example. Let's assume you were a different person, and you're seeing your sister go on like a WAN trip with another guy, right? Like, and you don't like the guy, you think she's bad for him, etc. Right? Would you still support like, and if she comes back from the land trip and she has the same feeling that you did with Ashley, which is like, okay, it's time, marriage, etc., right? Like this is the one, right? But you still don't like the guy. You see qualities in him which you think like, okay, my sister can do better than this, right? Where it's not so extreme, but there's still like a destructive element to it. At what point do you think like you are forced to, I guess, like support her in her decision versus go against it? Because I'm genuinely curious because I've seen a lot of these things over the last few days in my own life where it's like, um, I'm not sure to what extent I should be pushing on people to change versus just accepting that their path in life is different than my own, and thereby I should change my mentality to just support them in their decision, wherever that may lead. And I'm not sure what the balance for that is, right? Because
right.
some things look really sad, especially when it's like someone you care about genuinely.
Well, I would, yeah, in that situation that you bring up, I would definitely again make my opinion known,
Hmm.
and dig deeper and ask questions and try and figure out why this relationship is good to her,
Hmm.
um, and try and get a better understanding myself. But yeah, at the same time, airing my grievances and trying to bring to light things that maybe she isn't aware of.
Hmm.
But if all that is said and done, and at the end of the day, she's still in love with this person, I would honestly feel I would have to accept that and make the change in myself to try and get to know this person better, because clearly I don't think, I know my sister well enough to have faith in the decisions that she makes.
Right.
And, if she needs help, I'm there for her. And if she needs advice, I'm there for her.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if this is the person that makes her happy and I have an issue with them, well, that's my issue that I have. It's not something that I would push heavily, because that could just damage our relationship. Um, Now, there's limits to that. Like,
Hmm.
if I find out that, my sister's being abused,
Yeah.
well, I don't know what you could do to stop me from getting involved. And,
Right.
um, but if it's just, hey, I have a personality issue with this person, I don't care for their personality or whatnot. That's on me at the end of the day, because
Hmm.
if they're making my sister happy, it's my issue, right?
Interesting. And no, I think that's a good way of looking at it. So you're looking at it in two ways. The first is that you're communicating exactly what it is that needs to be said on your part. And then the second part is accepting, okay, I've communicated and I trust my sister and I love her. And based on that, you're like, okay, I can accept that, right? But then you're looking at the other side of it, which is like sometimes people don't understand like especially in an abusive relationship, some people don't realize that they're in that, right? That's what can make it so abusive. But if you're starting to see signs of that, then you would get more heavily involved because there is a direct harm to her, which has nothing to do with her decisions in particular, but rather to do with the fact that the situation itself is much worse than initial credence would be, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
And it would probably be very hard because you trust her and because she's smart and all that stuff for her to be in that situation, but you would still be cautiously aware of that if you didn't like the person. Sorry that I'm using your sister and that feels weird because like that makes it sound real. That I thought that would
Okay.
be the best way to communicate the relationship because I think that that's a common problem with like parents and kids, right? Because as they're you want to see the best from your kids, and the relationship between parents and kids are supposed to evolve over time. And I find like that's where the issues really start arising is when as you're seeing your kids grow up, the dynamic technically changes because you should theoretically have more and more trust in them. And I find in most, I don't know if this is the case with your parents, but I find in most brown households or more Desi house Pakistani, I don't know, Eastern culture households, right? There's
Okay.
this large imposition and large value that your kids are your legacy, and thereby your kids need to represent you, a better version of you, or represent you in a good way, right? And it's prophetic in a way that the way that they do it all.
Right.
But the limitation with that is that understanding like eventually the kids are their own person, and it's hard for those people to like let go of some of that stuff. I just thought I would get your perspective because I know like you've had a lot of like I think we've talked about having open dialogue before and how that leads and what you were talking about with Ashley about like there was this immediate communication and those expectations changing and you were surprised by that. I just thought it all connected back in my head. Maybe I'm tired and not doing a good job of this, but
No, no. One thing I'll pull off of what you just said there
yeah.
with children as their legacy.
Hmm.
Um, I could totally understand why parents would feel that way.
Right.
Um, Not really the impression I get from my parents. They One piece of advice that always stuck with me that they would tell me, as a teenager and just growing up, was, you know, whatever they take what they do,
Hmm.
anything that you don't like, use it as an opportunity to change for your kids. See the example that they've set, acknowledge it, accept it, figure out what you like, what you don't like, and then utilize their flaws as ways of improving your relationship with your kids because you lived through it. You know
Right.
what you don't like. So
Hmm.
remember that. And when you have kids, make those changes to not make the same mistakes that they may have made.
Dude, that's
Uh,
so damn beautiful.
just in terms of like a parent to child
Yeah.
relationship, kind of
Hmm.
reminded me of that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no, that's amazing. Honestly, I think that's really really good advice. We say that as neither of us have kids, but and one
yeah,
person here is single. Just okay. And then sorry, I know you have to go soon as well, but just last thing I really want to ask you then is based on how you've experienced your life and like in my opinion based on everything you've said you're very happy with your life the way that it's come up and the way that it's formed, and all the circumstances in your life led you to the next path and you were open to all of it and or introspective on it all, which is freaking hard still in my opinion. Like I think that that's where most people get stuck. Like it's very hard to
right.
do that. But speaking of legacies, right? Going forward, do you have any idea what kind of legacy you want to leave in the world, or is that even like a consideration for you? Like what the mark you're I feel like it is, right, based on what you said, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'd be fine, living my life and passing away and very few people even knowing who I am. That doesn't bother me at all. Like in terms of a legacy,
Hmm.
I, it's certainly not one of, hoping that I'm leaving a big mark on the world. Uh, I could care less. What I do care about is leaving the world in a better place somehow, using my own ability, my own time or money or whatnot to make good impressions throughout my life, or not good impressions, but make good change throughout my life
Mm-hmm.
for people, whether that's, donating or volunteering or helping friends or, you know, just trying to make little small impacts as frequently as one can. Um, in terms of a legacy, I would say maybe that would be it. Just try and leave the world in a slightly better position than when we got in this world. But if I live my life and I do that in my life and I'm forgotten, nobody remembers me, I'm very fine with that.
Uh, uh, uh,
That's not a concern of mine. Again, it's just this world can be so messed up. So
mhm.
anytime I have an opportunity to do good, I feel good. I want to pursue that path. I'll jump on those opportunities. Uh, yeah.
I mean, to me, that just sounds like a selfless way of leaving a legacy, right? Like that's amazing. I love it, and it goes back to literally everything else that you said. So I'm understanding you
Yeah.
better, dude. I freaking love it. Yeah. Well, I guess we can call it there. But do you have any other thoughts that you want to share with the audience? Any?
Oh, um, well, I don't know. I hope you I don't know. I hope this is any of this is usable. I don't know.
I think
um,
all of it is, but
no, right on. I don't know. These are difficult times.
Mhm.
Just let's be kind to one another. Let's try and learn from one another. Let's keep open conversations. There's a lot of division in the world right now. Talk to people you disagree with. Try and get better opinions on why they may feel that way. I'm sure you might find a lot of commonality. You know, I think there's a lot of distortion going on in the world where you have a lot of issues and you're looking for people to blame, and there's a lot of sources out there that may be like, hey, this is the person to blame. um, but I don't know if it's that simple. I think things are a little more complicated, and I think that the average person shares a lot of the same grievances that you may feel, and you might find that it's not for the reasons that you may feel based on stuff that you read online. And again, the only way we can break down some of this disinformation and division is to converse with one another and find that commonality and work with one another, and hopefully we can all build a bigger, brighter future and not end up regretting everything that we've done to this world. So only time will tell, and let's all work together. I don't know. There's my sign off, I guess.
Connor, I freaking love it, dude. No, thank you so much, and thank you for coming on. Honestly, you're talking about like what we can get from this or what's usable. I genuinely think that there's a lot of gold nuggets here, and just by listening to you and hearing your perspective on all of this, I'm sure that a lot of people will find their own paths and be able to adapt into their own lives. So thank you so much. Really, really appreciate all that, dude.
Well, thank you for conversing with me and inviting me on. I think what you're doing here is pretty exciting, and I think it's cool listening, to people's opinions and knowing that they're kind of, nearby, some of them at least. These are
Yeah.
these are people we may see passing in the streets. These are fellow people, and it's a cool thing you got going on here. I think you could have a lot of fun and learn a lot, and yeah, I hope it goes well.
Thanks, dude. I really appreciate that. You're honestly the best. You're the first person to say all this to me directly on this. I love it.